Welcome, everyone. My name is Melanie Holtz. I am an instructor with the International Institute of Genealogical Studies. Our website can be found at genealogicalstudies.com. We have 14 different certificate programs that you can learn from, including one that's being finalized in Italian genealogy. And so for tonight, what we're going to do is go over a section of a Italian parish research workshop that I did on State of the Souls records, also called the Stato delle Anime records. Let me get this going correctly. Just one moment. Okay. Well, the State of the Souls records, called Status Animarum or Stato delle Anime, are a type of parish census record. But it's mainly was used for the recording of the various sacraments within the Catholic Church. In 1563, the Council of Trent adjourned, and what that was a meeting of Catholic leaders, and they were to work out various things as far as what they were going to do going forward. In part, they decided that priests were required to keep baptismal, marriage, and death burial records for their parishioners. This is a big thing for Italian research because prior to 1800, the majority of records that are useful for genealogy are parish records, basically. So this was a really important thing and enables us to go back to the 16th century sometimes with these records that were kept by the Catholic Church. Now, the Stato delle Anime, they didn't start until 1614. I think it was Pope Paul V. He then said that they needed to start being kept. So basically, any church that was Roman Catholic, followed the Roman Rite, would be the ones to keep these. And this is not just Italy, because Catholic Church is around the world. So everywhere they were supposed to keep these Status Animarum books. And we're going to go through a couple, we're going to show you several of them and what kind of details can be found within them. Google Books has, through an agreement with the Italian Ministry of Culture, they have digitized thousands of books. And you can find a front cover, and actually one of the Retro Rome books that the Pope wrote to start this recording of the State of the Souls records. In part, that was not everything that was in it. It is thought to be a type of census, parish census. In certain time periods and areas of Italy, it was also used for taxation. So people viewed it as their duty to have this information recorded, but also in some ways because they were going to be taxed on some of the information, in particular, their land and things like wells and all of that. This is sometimes gets what I'm trying to say is it was not always received welcomely. These are progressive records, and by that I mean they were kept over a period of time, often by several priests. So this does introduce the chance for more errors in this way. So for example, there would be a book with this state of the souls for say 1700 to 1710. So over that time period, the vital statistics of each parishioner would be recorded. As children are born into the family, they'd be noted. As children passed away, they'd be noted. So all vital statistic states, including confirmation, taking of the sacraments. Normally around Easter, the priest would visit each household. Unless it was far away, then sometimes the priest would visit every few years and then record at that time what the changes have been to the family's status. It recorded information on whole family groups. And I want to make note that in Italian culture, normally a woman moved to her husband's home. So oftentimes you will find entries on these census records that talk about so-and-so was transferred to family number so-and-so. So you can track these marriages through that also and find the appropriate family that links to the people that you're researching. It can provide evidence on social status, especially for all adults in the family. There is normally some kind of title or occupation given. Titles can most definitely point to wealth and status within a society. If you have any questions as we go along, please go ahead and put it in the chat box, and I'd be glad to answer them. These records can also be used for tracking immigration for mobile ancestors between Italian towns or to and from other countries. It is often noted that when a person leaves the parish permanently and where they go. So I have seen, ancestors noted to, okay, move to Tripoli, move to Russia on certain days. So you can, that does point you in the right direction, for looking for a passenger manifest or something, or a reason why this child just dropped off the face of the earth and no one knows anything about them. They moved to Russia. There's your reason. So these can be very useful in that way. They're also used in a lot of scholarly research, population studies, studies on marriage patterns in various parts of society. They can be used to find names of old localities, which I've done, and oftentimes these are old feudal lands, especially in Italy. So it's not a matter of being able to find the names of all those old feudal lands really easily. Sometimes the state archives in Italy will keep a running list of those old localities and about where they're at, but not always. In particular, if something very rural, it just might have been a cluster of homes, but it does help, generally place the family within the area. It can also be used to clarify information on conflicting, damaged, or illegible records. So if you take a look at this particular record, this is a baptismal record with ink bleed through from the other side. It is from the late 16th century, and it's very hard to read. There is also a lot of abbreviations within this document. Most parish records are in Latin of various forms, depending on the time period. The information recorded does depend on the time period, the education level of the priest, the location, and what the diocese was asking of the priest at that time. The further back in time you go, the less information they recorded. So I'll be showing you several of these, and you can see how they do vary in what information is shown. They may be in Italian. Mostly they're in Latin, sometimes French, or sometimes dialect. There was one town in Sicily that I researched years ago. It had Italian, Latin, and the Palermo dialect, of which there are like 4. One of those dialects within these records. So that was a little bit difficult in the translation aspect. Priests were often educated, but they had varying levels of education. So some of what's recorded and how they recorded it really depended on the priest level of education. In northern Italy, you can find, especially in the northwestern part of Italy, a lot of the records, pre-1700 are in French and an old version of Latin. You'll find deceased children not recorded in subsequent censuses. So if they, for example, if this State of the Souls register was for 1700 to 1704, and 3 children in the family die, and within that time period, they'll be noted with a symbol. And I'm going to show you an image of that. And then they are not carried over into the 1705 to whatever, 1710 State of the Souls records. So if you find one of those registers and you find, okay, yes, my ancestor had 6 children, here they are, you need to go back further just to make sure you're not missing any children who passed away, between the various registers, various time periods. The handicapped are not normally recorded in these records, in particular the mentally handicapped. Sometimes they would be if the priest felt the need to explain why he was not giving the sacraments to this person. And the handicapped cannot be taxed. So most times they were omitted. The households in these records may be numbered. I've often seen where they not necessarily number the households, but they number the adults, and then they number the children. So the first family that they begin to record, the adult male is number 1. And so they'll just go down the numbers as they go house to house when they're creating these records. So in the town of Onore in the Bergamo province, I found this particular State of the Souls record for Arcangelo Raphael Colati, who was son of Giovanni and Maria Conti, born on the 1st of January, 1853, perhaps 1857, it's very hard to read, in Onore. No family number was given. He did reside in the Colotto section of Onore, and his godparents were Raphael Laguna and Pietra Schiave, daughter of Giovanni Schiave. So this does give you some types of information that you might find within a 19th century State of the Souls record. Usually they are less paragraph like this and more a list, which I'll show you a few of those as we go forward. Sometimes they are a single page, excuse me. As far as the entry, sometimes they are facing pages, like you would open a book. Ages and birth dates may not be given, or they might be given within the oldest records. Oftentimes when a child was under 2, Their age was not given because they don't consider a child viable before the age of 2. Excuse me a moment while I take a drink of water. Sometimes the names of godparents are given, like in the previous record, but not always. And the majority of times they weren't given. You can use these records to find double surnames or nicknames. So in certain areas of Italy, like for example, I've given you this example of Alessandra Boccaccini Ardenghi. So Boccaccini Ardenghi is a double surname. Other aspects of this family, we find a nickname following Ardenghi, basically an occupational type of nicknames, like cart rider, that sort of thing, manufacturer. In this particular area of Italy in the north east, this was quite common. And then we saw one in that particular area, Maria Francesca, daughter of the deceased Francesco Petrogalli, also known as Zampadere. Zampadere is a very old word for cart driver. They can be used as a means to find the surname of female ancestors, but not always, because Italian parish records did not always name the female as far as a surname is concerned. Sometimes it's just the given name. More often than not, though, if you do find a surname, it's intimated by giving the name of her father. So like Clara, daughter of Francesco Boccaccini. Italian women did use their birth surname throughout life. So you're not going to look for them in these records as they're created in Italy with any other surname but their maiden name. That's what they use throughout life. And it's only rather recently that Italy has given the rights to couples to choose what leeway to make these choices for themselves. Depending on the parish and the year, there may or may not be separate confirmation records called cresima. The state of the souls may be the only evidence of this event. And so they usually don't write fully confirmed confession, communion, as far as the sacraments are concerned. They'll put a C or CR or CON or COM for communion. Oftentimes there will be an X if there's a child soon to be confirmed, if they're in the process of that. Usually children over 10, but sometimes as young as 8. You will find a lot of abbreviations, many, including names like Geronima. Oftentimes they'll give the first part and then the superscript, the last letter, as you can see in this example. Marital status, Vedova, widow, VED, superscript A. So these you'll get used to as you begin to use these records more. Oftentimes civil status or relation to head of household are also abbreviated. Filio being son, filia, so FIG, superscript A for daughter. And here is that symbol I said is put on an individual's record when they pass away. So having this symbol on it, especially pre-1700, will indicate that individual passed away. So if they're in the previous set of State of the Souls records as living, and in the next set they're showed as deceased with this way of writing it, then you have a very narrow time frame for their death, and you can go to the death certificates in the parish and look for that record. This isn't the only place that it's going to be recorded. Their deaths and or burial record will also be recorded. So in some of the older ones, this symbol was also used to close out an entry when someone moved to another parish. Kind of, I've always looked at it like it's like, okay, they died to me. So the next priest will put him in their registers as living. Most of the State of the Souls records are still being conserved in the parishes. Sometimes in certain areas, depending on how they've moved the records around, you might find them in the diocesan archives, the Archivio Diocesano. The ecclesiastical records, meaning parish records, there are a lot that have been digitized by Family Search. So that is one big way that you can find these records. And they are usually labeled Stato dello Anime on the Family Search index pages. So when I did this sheet, there were 383 collections on Family Search that had some records that were State of the Souls records. Alcamo in the Trapani province does have some. If you look that up in the Family Search catalog, and Family Search is familysearch.org, and then you click at the top to their catalog, and you can look by place, you can look by subject, name on the collection, that sort of thing. So there were two listed here, the parish records between 1545 and 1912, and then also for a separate parish. The first one was for the Santa Maria Assunta parish. The second one was for the Santa Apostoli Paolo, a Bartolomeo parish. And their records were 1615 to 1910. So there's a good many years here. Family Search is also doing a lot of digitizing in the diocesan archives if they can get permission. But for each type of parish record, parish collection of records, they have to have a separate permission to do that. It's not part of the overall permission that they got from the Italian State Archives, and I believe it was 2012, or I think 2012, where they got permission to digitize all the civil records and military records in the state archives. Parish records are not part of that. And there is no legal obligation basically for them to allow you to access them. So when you do approach a priest about wanting to access records, in particular on site, you know, you need to be very differential. And we'll talk about a few things that might help you in getting permission to look at the records. You won't find everything online, and there are still a lot of records that haven't been digitized. I did want to mention, though, before we go any further, that there is ItalianParishRecords.org, which is a website, an organization who is helping to digitize the Italian parish records. And they've made a lot of progress, but there's a lot more to do. So in the Alcamo records, you see we have several, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different year ranges within that collection for the State of the Souls records. The top one is also some death records on there, morti. On the bottom one, there's also some marriage banns, which is the pubblicazioni. Now, in this particular record, it was from 1700 to 1704 in that particular register for the Novella family. So on the top, it just said 175. That does mean a family number. Benedetto Novella, age 32, had confirmation and communion, so it had the appropriate symbols for that, was in the household between 1700 and 1704. There was no symbol that he passed. Anna Maria, his wife, no surname given, age 32, had confirmation and communion, was in the household the whole time. Gaetano, last name assumed to be the head of household's last name, Novella, son of the head of household, age 4. Maria Caterina, daughter, age blank. And if you remember, I said if someone was under 2, they didn't consider that a viable person yet, so we can assume that Maria Caterina was 2 or under. And we're going to look at a 1750 State of the Souls records for a different part of the Novella family. In this one, they put number 212, and that was the household number. They don't always label it as a household number. And it's not necessarily what we would consider the street address. It's just the number of the household within the parish records. So this was a house of Giuseppe Novella, and Giuseppe was son of the deceased Benedetto, 638. So here he is the 638th adult recorded in this particular register. Maria Maddalena, daughter of the living Antonio, his wife, and she was number 639 as far as adults are concerned. And you see they are consecutive. So we have the children, Anna Maria and Gaetano, also considered to be adults, which is usually 12 and above when it comes to this sort of thing. And then we have Antonio Maria Novella, age 5, and he is the 314th child recorded in that register. There was a symbol there that he passed away. And he did have a sister, Maria Teresa, who was 1 year old. Her age was extra stated, but you do not normally see that. And then there was Reverend Gaetano Novella, which we found to be the brother of Giuseppe Novella. In the next one, we're looking at Giacomo Balduzzi, Cumini. So Cumini, I believe, was a nickname, if I remember correctly. So Giacomo Balduzzi, Cumini, son of the deceased Antonio Balduzzi Cumini, born on the 26th of July, 1760, widower of Maria Salvadelli Gallant. Gallant then is also a nickname. So when you're looking for these families that have nicknames like this, they could be, for example, Giacomo. He could be listed as Giacomo Cumini without the Balduzzi in other records. Maria could be, Maria Gallant in other records. So you need to keep that in mind. And they had 4 children: Antonio, age 15, Giovanni Maria, Maria, and Agnese. In some records, they also have various versions of given names, like Bortolo Bertolo, often recorded over the years. And with, only one individual, he probably never even knew, if he was not literate, that he's being recorded in different ways. So in this particular entry, you also see a nickname for Giovanni Maria Pergori of Braghi, who was the wife of Antonio Balduzzi. And down further, there is a nickname for Giacomino Trussardi with the nickname of Pero. Again, they're giving relationships, here. So you see she's the wife of Giovanni Maria Balduzzi. And in this particular instance, they're giving full birth dates, but not where they were born. I'm going to show you a few additional examples from different time periods, different areas of Italy. It'll give you a better idea of what to look for when you're working with these records. So this particular register was found in the town of Bogliasco, which is in the Genoa province in the far northwest of Italy. And so you see on the front cover, it shows that on the top, 1695, 96, 97, 98, 99, and then further down, 1700, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the status Hannah Moran. So the ones in the 17th century actually did end up being baptismal records, but it's not clearly stated up here. So those in the 17th century were baptismal records, and then the State of the Souls records started in 1700. Some of the more current State of the Souls records will have indexes like this. There's not usually indexes in the older ones, the pre-1800 ones. They will be numbered, as you see here, numerically, but this wasn't this was the number that they were placed in the register, the order. The actual page is given on the right. So you see the first 4 entries are going to be on page 46. They have indicated an N, but that's usually in these type of records, instead of numeral, it means a page. So you would go looking for that, for page 46. And usually pages were front and back. So you have to keep that in mind, or you're looking too far into the register. This one was from 1917, and you'll see here that they started having some pre-printed information. So this says the State of the Souls of the parish of Santa Maria Assunta in Cielo in Monte Bolzone, 1917. Here they're doing it in a type of register that's combined with the population registers, which is how the civil offices recorded their type of census prior to 1910. So you'll see a family number on the left. On the third column, you do find you'll see a civil family number on the left and a parish family number in the third column, in the third section of the first column. The names, the ages of that person, profession, usually only given for the head of household. Sometimes if another male in the household was over 16 or over 18, their occupation would be shown also. Also whether they were single or married, and what sacraments they've taken. So you see in this case, it's just C, C, C if they've taken the sacraments. And osservazioni, which is observations. So if there was someone in the household who was not considered viable because of their, mental status, then that would be noted here. In this particular record, they put the surname of the family up top, Bertoloni. Head of household is Michele. Fu Antonio. Fu means deceased. So he was the son of the deceased Antonio Vercellone. The next line, it says Domca, which is an abbreviation of Domenica. And you'll see that little curved thing over the C and the A. That's to indicate that it's an abbreviation. Her last name was Castellino. She was daughter of this deceased Giovanni Maria. You see Maria has a capital M, superscript A. Although that's hard to read, it's not going to be Mario. It's going to be Maria, even though it's a male. And if you go down to the last three entries, you'll see Teresa, Fa, Filia, meaning daughter to the head of household. And it does give ages for most of them, except for Margarita, I don't believe is noted to have an age, so she's likely under 2. Here is one for 1815. And each person's entry starts with the sacraments. And you see they've drawn lines for the separation of the families because the families were just running down on a long register. And this particular entry, this was found in the town of Clusone. This Longaretti listed on the top is one of those old feudal lands. So that's something that I actually had to really go looking for to find out exactly where that used to be, so I could place the family within that area. And actually, it ended up that that was no longer under the jurisdiction of the same town, but those records still remain where they were when they were first created. And you see this handwriting is quite messy. And there are a lot of abbreviations. If you'll look at the, sixth line of text where it says Margarita, and the second word after that, it says uxor. That means wife. So she's the wife, most likely, of Jacobus Girardi above there. All right, if you have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the comment box. I wanted to mention that we are working hard on finalizing a whole degree program for Italian research. So please join us in doing this, and we would love to be able to help you research your Italian ancestors, and it's going to be a really awesome course. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. Again, I'm Melanie Holtz, and my email is melanie@italyancestry.com. You can go ahead and take a look at all the courses that we offer at the Institute, again, at genealogicalstudies.com.